Ladies and gentlemen of the community, welcome to the Black and Intellectual YouTube channel. It's been a while since I posted a video, but I had to get this off my chest because the topic bothers me that much. I've already made a very similar video some months back to the one I'm making right now. Okay, and this is to all of my fellow Black American citizens. Okay, we have a gatekeeper problem in our community. A serious, very serious gatekeeper problem within our community. I'm going to focus the attention of this video on last week's interview between Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey interviewed Monique on his show, on his talk show. I'm not going to play the entire interview. It's about 11 minutes long. And to be honest with you, the first half of the interview wasn't that bad. It didn't. At first, I was watching, and I was like, okay, I don't really see where the outrage is. But then that 5 minute 25-second mark hit, and that's where I'm going to actually start the video. So before I continue, let me play it.
Changes. But if all of y'all said, this is the only issue I have with it, baby, when all of y'all said privately, to include Oprah, all of y'all said privately, I've done nothing wrong.
When you tell the truth, you have to deal with the repercussions of the truth. We black out here. We can't come out here and do it any kind of way we want to. Listen to me. Your husband can't be the Sydney that he really is out here.
Let me tell you something.
That flexing, we got to flex a different way. We out here in a game. This the money game. This ain't the black man's game. This ain't the white man's game. This the money game.
But
we in the money game.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there for a second, because this is when Steve Harvey kind of begins to and we've known for a while now that Steve Harvey is a gatekeeper. It's why he has the access that he has, because you have to understand that they don't just put anybody on television. You know, it's when it comes to like these multi-billion-dollar media conglomerates and corporations and things like that, they're very careful about the people they put on television, especially the black people, because they want to control the narrative of our community. So in order to do that, they prop up people like Steve Harvey. He said to Monique, he said, we're not in the this is not the black man's game. This is not the white man's game. This is the money game. We're in the money game. So he's letting you know right off the bat that for him, and he's not the only one who thinks this way. A lot of people think this way. A lot of people in the community think this way, unfortunately. For him, it's about the money. Point blank, period. As you'll see later on in the interview, it's also clear that Steve Harvey lacks integrity. I'm not going to say he lacks integrity universally on all issues, but he certainly he's made it clear that he's willing to sacrifice integrity in order to maintain his standard of living. And what I'm actually going to get into later on in the video is explaining that there is a correlation, it appears, between especially when it comes to black people, there's a correlation between lacking integrity and getting ahead. It's a balancing act. You're not always able to have integrity and to actually stand for something, especially if what you're standing for deals with the black community and protecting the black community and defending the black community. You can't really do that and be accepted within corporate America. This is a very, very dirty little truth about the post-civil rights era that I really don't think people emphasize enough, but it's clear that it's a prevalent mentality. I'm gonna digress on that though until I get to that point. But he says that we're in the money game. So he's telling Monique that if you want to get ahead and if you want to, not be blackballed anymore, you have to put the money, you have to put capital, you have to put capitalism essentially ahead of the community. That's what he's saying right here. That's what he's saying when he says it's not the black man's game. He threw in the whole thing. It's not the white man's game. It's a game that's dominated by them. So he threw that in there to make it sound more balanced. But in reality, what he's saying is this is not a game that we control. So you have to play the game the way that they want you to play the game, and you have to care more about your money than what's actually going on to you or to your people. So you have to basically sell out. And this is why so many people have been getting on Steve Harvey over the past week. So let me continue.
And you cannot sacrifice yourself. The best thing you can do for poor people is not be one of them. You cannot help them. We're in the money game, but let me tell you.
So I'm going to stop it right there again. He said the best thing you can do for poor people is to not be one of them. And then he said, you can't help them, Mo. Again, he's showing you who he is. You know, Steve Harvey is representative of the black person who, quote unquote, made it. But what they don't tell you a lot of times about a lot of these black people, especially if you're not, it's one thing if you're independently wealthy, you know, where you kind of own your own thing and your money is not really dependent on other people. Your money is not really dependent on being within a system dominated by other people, is what I'm trying to say. Whereas with somebody like Steve Harvey, his money is dependent on his access, the access that he's given by white folks. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Like, that's why I said earlier, that's why people like him get put on television. Okay, they're definitely not going to put Monique on television. They're not going to put a lot of other, a lot of other types of people on television, but they put people like Steve Harvey on television. And then you even look at shows like The View, and you look at who they put on, the black people they decide to put on The View, like Whoopi Goldberg and Raven Simone when she was, before she left, back when she was on there. And I'm not saying all the black people who have been on The View are of the same mentality, because they're not, but the notion that the way to help black people is to not be one of them doesn't even make sense. So that's not even something that you can logically even break down, because there's no logic behind it. First of all, nobody wants to be poor. That's not a choice that people make. It's a product. It's a product of their environment. It's a product of circumstance. Okay, so what he's saying, if you read between the lines, what he's trying to say, and what he didn't want to say literally, because he knew I'm sure he knew he would step into a lot of heat, and which, I mean, he's been given a lot of heat anyway over the past week. But what he's basically saying is, ignore those poor folks. Ignore all of this stuff about inequality. As he said earlier, this is the money game. You worry about you, worry about yourself, you worry about maybe your immediate family. Don't worry about those other people. Don't worry about those other folks. It's a fundamentally an elitist, it's an elitist mindset, and it's a very prevalent mindset with a lot of capitalists, because the thing about capitalism is it kind of teaches people to care more about themselves being at the top of their own pyramid than they do the people who are beneath them, or not literally beneath them, but in their eyes, the people who don't have as much as they do. So it reeks of all kinds of problems, this mindset. But what I want people to understand is, and I know people know this already, the reason why I'm calling him a gatekeeper is because this is very systematic. Steve Harvey is speaking for other people. He's not just speaking for himself. Okay, that's the number one thing I took away from this whole interview. Okay, he's being the middleman, okay, essentially between Monique and Lee Daniels, Oprah Winfrey, and Tyler Perry. Okay, so he's literally being a gatekeeper right now. So let me play a little bit more of this. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Tell you what the game is before the money game. Like before the money game, it's called the integrity game, and we've lost the integrity worrying about the money.
But Mo,
wait a minute.
If I crumble, my children crumble, my grandchildren crumble. I cannot, for the sake of my integrity, stand up here and let everybody that's counting on me crumble so I can make a statement. There are ways to win the war in a different way. We got more right after this.
Okay, so if you want to watch the entire interview, it's definitely online. You can find it various places online. He tries to frame it at the end where he says, I'm not going to sacrifice my money for integrity to make a statement, basically, because he has all of these people depending on him. First of all, a lot of people have pointed this out, and I'm glad I made this video now instead of making it, right when this happened. Colin Kaepernick, this is kind of off topic, but Colin Kaepernick, recently, yesterday, I want to say, essentially beat the NFL because the NFL has agreed if he signs a confidentiality agreement, meaning he can't publicly state that he won, but everybody kind of knows that he won, and everybody now knows that the NFL colluded. Not only do I think they colluded amongst themselves, but I also believe they colluded with the White House. And I think that's part of that's another reason why they got him to sign a confidentiality agreement, not only to protect the NFL owners, but to protect Trump. Because I believe that a lot of these owners were in cahoots with the White House. I literally believe Donald Trump called up the NFL owners and told the NFL owners not to hire Kaepernick and to shut down the kneeling protests and everything like that. Okay. And they don't want that coming out. So they've basically, agreed to give Kaepernick a lot of money, basically, and to sign a confidentiality agreement. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Colin Kaepernick maintained his integrity, and he beat one of the most powerful corporate conglomerates in the country, which is the NFL, the National Football League. He beat them, and not only did he beat the NFL, and the NFL has to now pay Kaepernick, but Kaepernick has a multi-million-dollar Nike deal. Nike sales went up, and Nike even aired an ad, with Kaepernick. So this notion that you need to sacrifice your integrity to maintain a living is a lie. And it's a lie that a lot of these gatekeepers have probably told themselves so that they can sleep better at night, and so that they can justify their lack of action, and they can justify their lack of integrity. So they've built these lies up for themselves. But I also want to say they've built up these lies to tell the public. Okay, because they want other people to think like they do. Because you got to understand that this whole gatekeeper thing is not about just keeping certain people like Monique out. Okay, it's also about them wanting the black community and people within the black community to think a certain way. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much more time on that particular interview. I do want to read, before I do that, I want to give a brief definition of what a gatekeeper actually is. Okay. A gatekeeper is a person or thing, but most of the time we're talking about people. It's a person who controls access to something. Okay. It's a person who is employed or directed to control who gains passage into whatever group, organization, club, whatever the case may be. In historical terms, it was literally like a person at a gate, preventing people from gaining entrance into a house or a mansion, a palace, a city, And so within society, you have, as I said earlier, you have people who are positioned to act as proverbial gatekeepers. And that's Steve Harvey's job right now. He's gatekeeping, because the whole gist of the interview is, because I didn't play this, but he even said that Monique maintains that she has nothing to apologize for because she did nothing wrong, but Steve Harvey kept emphasizing that she's going to have to apologize, and I'm sure she's thinking to herself, apologize for what? Now, she has said some unsavory things about some of these people publicly, and that's what he's referring to. But then he also tried to clean it up and say, well, they're going to have to apologize too. So basically, both sides are going to have to come out and say that they were wrong, when honestly, the original issue was with them. The original issue was with Oprah, Lee Daniels, and Tyler Perry, and their blackballing of Monique. The original issue wasn't with Monique, but he's telling her, relaying the message. I get the impression relaying the message from them. He's telling her, oh, you have to apologize publicly. Maybe they might apologize publicly, maybe not. They'll definitely apologize to you personally. They might not do it publicly, but you're going to have to apologize publicly. Okay? This is a lesson in black gatekeeping. Now, I found this article. Okay, and it was written in... it's from medium.com, but on Medium you have these different publications that post, almost entirely on Medium. And one of these is a publication called The Establishment. Now, this is an article written in 2016, so it's not a recent article, but it touches on specifically what I'm talking about. It's called Why It's Important to Challenge the Power of Gatekeepers. Okay. I'm only going to read a little bit of this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says, this past weekend, Pride Toronto saw their parade stalled by their own honored guests, Black Lives Matter Toronto. The activists, who were clad in black and holding up simple purple Black Lives Matter banners, held a 30-minute sit-in to make demands including better inclusion of people of color and LGBT organizations, the discontinuation of police floats in the parade. I didn't even know that was a thing. And better acknowledgement and efforts on behalf of the special challenges LGBT people of color face and the disproportionate threat of violence facing LGBT black people. Many were outraged by the actions of BLM Toronto. Many more were outraged when Pride Toronto agreed to many of their demands. Journalist Sue Ann Levy complained on Twitter that, quote, this parade is about gay rights, not BLM, end quote, and has spent the days since explaining that if BLM wants to have their demands met, they have to ask more respectfully. Okay, you hear that? And then it continues and says, Sue Ann Levy, or Levy, however you say her last name, Sue Ann Levy is a gatekeeper. The overwhelming majority of comments made in response to an article on the Huffington Post defending BLM Toronto argued that BLM was a blight on social justice movements, that they were, quote, too loud, too demanding, too rude, and too disruptive. These commenters are gatekeepers. I witnessed a similar phenomenon firsthand when Black Lives Matter protesters in Seattle disrupted a Bernie Sanders rally last year. The outrage I saw from many of my very liberal white friends and community members was shocking. They were appalled that such, quote, violent rhetoric as, quote, white supremacists and, quote, racists would be shouted at them. They were dismayed by how, quote, disrespectful the protesters had been, and that they would disrupt a rally of those who had, quote, done so much for them. They too are gatekeepers. Gatekeepers rarely challenge their own position as gatekeepers. They are simply right. They are more knowledgeable. This is how the person who's writing this is saying that this is how gatekeepers think. And when I'm reading this is exactly how Steve Harvey behaved when it came to Monique. Gatekeepers rarely challenge their own position as gatekeepers. They are simply right. They are more knowledgeable. They are more level-headed. They are more experienced. And more invested in the future of whatever movements they belong to. They know what is best and will enforce it for the greater good. They find themselves saying, quote, that is not appropriate. And if you think about this, Steve Harvey was saying the same thing. He kept telling Monique in that interview, you're not doing it the right way. He said that several times. I don't think you did it the right way. I don't think you handled it the right way. So this is literally what this author is saying as well. And the gatekeepers also say things like, that is counterproductive, or, quote, why do you have to make this about you when it's about us? You know, they say this because their need to be inappropriate has passed, because their productivity is now in line with the majority, because they have long won the right to make things about them. And then here's the important part. The role of the gatekeeper should be to protect those inside. So the role of the gatekeeper is to protect those inside the gates, okay, inside the establishment, and to ensure that those who would be deemed a threat are kept out. Okay, but who defines that threat? To the powerless, the obvious threat is always the powerful. But what about those with even less power who want some of the little power you have? Yes, they fought right along with you for that power, but there simply isn't enough to go to them too. If they dare demand their share instead of being grateful for your benevolent leadership and protection, aren't they the biggest threat of all? So I'm going to end it there, and well, at least in the quotes from this particular article. And the article goes on to talk about how, you know, you have gatekeepers in every social movement, in every group. And that's true. A lot of times you have people who started out as, you know, the fighters in a movement, and they get elevated to gatekeeper status. Okay. This happens a lot. And so before I end the video, I want to say that gatekeepers in the black community serve multiple purposes. Some of the purposes I laid out from the article, but one of the main purposes they serve is to help keep certain voices in isolation. Okay, voices that speak on things that powerful people don't want elevated. Okay, Monique did something she wasn't supposed to do, and that is allow the Hollywood elite to use her. You know, you're not supposed to not allow that, at least, and you're supposed to, like, as they say, play the game. So she did something that she wasn't supposed to do, and that's challenge that. You know, she didn't want. She got tired of people using her. She got tired of people trying to, you guys know the story already. She made some comments publicly and has continued to make comments publicly for a while now on multiple platforms. And she was blackballed because of it, you know, by her own people. So this right here proves to you that black people getting their foot in the door, okay, it's not a path to black liberation. Let me repeat that. Black people getting their foot in the door is not a path to black liberation. What it is a path to, if you're not careful, is the loss of integrity as you tap dance and gatekeep to keep the people writing your checks happy. You have black gatekeepers in just about every space, every occupation now. Okay. And so I wanted to make this video so that people realize that we have to start thinking about how we're going to evolve in the 21st century. Because having your livelihood depend on you lacking integrity is not the path forward. Okay, that's clearly not the path forward. But it's the path that a lot of people have chosen. Okay, and your accumulation of wealth being dependent on selling out and being silent on things that hurt your community is not a recipe for long-term success for black people as a group. Okay, that's just the truth. We have to reevaluate what it means to be free, black people. You know, we have to reevaluate that, because to some of the black gatekeepers out here, freedom is getting a fat check. Okay, freedom is playing the game. Freedom is being able to escape the black community and live among white folks and ignore racism. Okay, freedom is participating in a morally bankrupt system of capitalism so that you get ahead and the 99% of the rest of your community doesn't. You know, so which is literally what Steve Harvey said in the interview. You know, one of the best ways for you to help poor people is not be one of them. So in other words, one of the best ways for you to get ahead, Monique, is to ignore what is happening to other black people. It is to ignore inequality. It is to ignore structural racism. If you really listen to what he said, that's because he's not going to come out and blatantly state that, because then that will be too obvious. His gatekeeping will be too obvious. So he had to sort of pepper it up. He had to say what he needed to say to convey that message to her without literally stating that. But he slipped up. Okay, when he said this is the money game and the best way to help poor people is to not be one of them, he slipped up. You know, he got a little too honest. You know, because he started getting the interview got a little emotional and it got a little heated. So he started getting a little animated, and the truth actually started to come out, and he stopped speaking in code for a little bit. Okay, so I just wanted to make that video. So yeah, check me out. Stay tuned for my next video, and I will talk to you later.